when I say development, that is the most important part. This is not only building roads, putting up new buildings, or the rural development. This is not a one-way communication. The objective of the center is to create a dialogue. So I think the challenge we have at the moment as an agency is how we are going to work with public and private sector media organizations.
So I wouldn't be wrong if I said in essence what you're doing is disrupting the existing media.
Today, if you tell a lie, by the evening that is the truth, and no point we telling the truth again day after tomorrow, because by the time there is a new news on the paper. So that's a very challenging task. Television has a massive, immense power in this country. Why? Human rights is not a theoretical issue anymore. It's an instrument the most of the developed countries are using to control the economy of our countries. SLFP has formed our political thinking, to be very honest, but our reading is very leftist. SLPP was carefully crafted, carefully formed, carefully built party. Every single aspect of the party was very well thought. There is a very strong ideology behind the party. There is a very strong philosophy where we all stand by. That is why this party could score massive 3 victories within a small period of time across presidential, general and local government election.
Hi Milinda, welcome to the Debrief.
Hi.
Hi. So let's start with, now you're a young politician. You're a member of the Colombo Municipal Council, but you have now been elevated to the role of Director of the Media Center for National Development. Now during the war times, we had a Media Center for National Security, also run under the Media Ministry. Is this new Media Center modeled around the same lines? What is the difference? What do you expect to do?
If you are looking at, I think it's a good time to look at the former Media Center, which was established at that time by the Defense Secretary, now the President. There was a real need on the ground and also in the international arena to see the truth from the war front. And that's why the Media Center was established, and that was a massive coordinated mechanism among the military, among the other agencies of the government and the media channels. And if you could remember, there were so many journalists at the war front reporting from there, and there were limitations for the international media to come and do reporting in the war front, and that was the first time I think Sri Lanka as a state properly communicated on one mission. And we all were waiting for the news at that time. That was a much bigger cause as a country. That's why everyone was waiting for the news. But there was a coordinated effort. There was a coordinated mechanism by the government. That was a good learning. Anyone studied communication or anyone wants to learn more about the state communication, that's a good case study to look at. But after that, actually, immediately after the war, then the Defense Secretary and the Media Minister realized there was no need for the Media Center, and they dismantled the office. But then there was again a Media Center, actually after 2016. That was a cabinet paper from the Prime Minister. The name was just the Media Center. When we took over the office in 2020, that Media Center was shut down because it was clearly evident that the goals or the objectives were not achieved. But now we are in a very, very different situation, not only as a country but as a region or as a world, especially because of the pandemic. And if you look at our document, which is Saubhagya Dakma, is very much working oriented, very much development oriented, and very much people centric document. And there are a lot of things people are expecting us to do, And there are a lot of things we also promise people to get done within these 5 years. But now 1 year has gone with the pandemic. Some of the work we were planning has been on hold, and there are much needed changes to some of the work. Even the policy level, there must be, we must look at we should look at it as a progressive document now because of the situation. So there is a need for all of us to come together and concentrate on this development aspect. When I say development, that is the most important part. This is not only building roads, putting up new buildings, or the rural development. This is the development as per the bigger umbrella of development which we are talking about, the sustainable angle of the development, the environmental angle of the development, of course the economical angle of the development. But if you look at the document, Saubhagya Dakma, is very much clear how we are going to do our development projects. It's very people centric, and we know what is our social development policy. We are very clear in politics, even we are very clear about what kind of social development we are looking at, even the public assets, all these things we are very clearly written down how we are looking at the development. So now there is a need, especially after the pandemic, that country or the state communicate this properly. This is not a one-way communication. The objective of the center is to create a dialogue. So there is a much needed dialogue between people, policymakers, implementers, and the politicians about the development process of the country. So we are going to create that dialogue.
If we move into a little more, if we try to understand a little bit about how you're going to bring this about, you're talking about a dialogue and you're talking about fostering two-way communication. How do you expect to do this? Will you be having weekly meetings? Will you be having maybe a press briefing once a week and then a dialogue with media or dialogue with other stakeholders? How do you expect to take this forward?
So see, now communicating to media is 25% of the entire center. You know, that's not going to be the entire task of the center. There are a lot of angles when it comes to the development communication and the development dialogue. There is a need for fact checking. More than ever, the accuracy of the information is questioned, even in the mainstream media. So even for the most of the development projects we are doing, since we are talking about the development projects, the truth is not communicated properly, or the false informations are going around. So this fact checking part, when I say fact checking, there are fact checking institutes already, but there is a much needed support we should give now to journalists and media channels to find accurate information. And the speed of the communication is also very important. Today, if you tell a lie, by the evening, that is the truth, and no point we telling the truth again day after tomorrow, because by the time there is a new news on the paper. So that's a very challenging task. And then we have actually the need of creating this development dialogue. Even if you look at most of the media today, the development aspect is a very small aspect. Probably that is not very interesting for the audience, or that is not making a lot of ratings for most of the media channels. There might be reasons commercially, but there is a need now for the country. So then how we are going to work with existing TV programs or the TV channels or the newspapers, the whatever the space available, and get maximum out of that existing space for the development part. So that is another challenge we are going to deal with.
You were talking about dialogue. How exactly do you intend to do this kind of communication and dialogue? Do you intend to foster dialogue and communication by having press conferences once a week, or will you have perhaps meetings with key stakeholders in the public? Like, how do you expect to do this?
See, that is the traditional way of looking at communicating this development. I mean, this having press conferences, doing press release, talking to media is going to be 25% of this entire thing. I think what is most important at the moment is how we are going to use existing resources to develop this dialogue. Now we have president media, you have prime minister media, and then the next door I have government information center, which is a massive mechanism. Then when you go to any ministry, they have a media unit, and you go to any big government institute, they have a media unit, and you go to any big private sector organization, they have a communication office, which has again fully fledged communication team, and then there are PR agencies help them out. So how we are going to harness all this? How am I going to use these existing TV programs, radio programs, or the given media space in the newspapers to get a better slot, to get a better space for the development? Otherwise, if we are to create completely a different parallel line of development communication, no one is going to enjoy that.
Yes.
You know, we are already tired of what is going on in the world, and even the development is relating to different people in different ways. You know, now the highway development could be interested for people who are going to be benefited from that, but someone would be very interested in the agricultural development. So this is a massive area. So I think the challenge we have at the moment as an agency is how we are going to work with public and private sector media organizations, including the digital media like you, to get a better space, to get a better time slot, or communicate differently. So now most of the TV channels and radio channels communicate this, but how are we going to communicate this in a much interesting way, more informative way, a more relevant way to different social segments or the different geographies? So yes, there will be press conferences, there will be press releases, there will be new documentaries coming out, there will be coordinated campaigns coming out from everyone, there will be panel discussions we organize. Yeah, there will be all that, but yes, I think the main responsibility of the media center is to coordinate and bring out a coordinated communication mechanism about the development of the country, not only the public sector but also the private sector of the country.
So I wouldn't be wrong if I said in essence what you're doing is disrupting the existing media that's existing
to a certain level. I would not say I'm going to disrupt
in that sense, but disrupting in a media sense.
Correct, in the media sense, because I think when I talk to all the channel heads, media heads, editors, they all are ready to this genuinely, and they all know the importance of this. They all want to do this while they are doing all the other things. So, but how are we going to help them to coordinate this, you know, and a lot of people are doing different things in different places in different capacities. So someone has to look at the whole picture, that holistic development angle. I think that is what we are going to do now. That's the mandate President, Prime Minister and the Media Minister has given us.
Speaking of disruption in the media technology sense, I noticed that this media center has already a presence on social media. You're already on Facebook, already on Twitter. Do you intend to use these platforms to communicate these messages? And
yeah, if you look at, coming from my, again, very much of my political communication background, even during an election, 60% of the message, or the 70% I would say, the messages people see are from the television. You know, television has a massive, immense power in this country. But what had happened over the time, two things. The perception you build on social media now goes out beyond young people. That is because most of the young people from 16 to 25, you are still at home in Sri Lanka. So whatever you gather from there, you bring it to the dinner table. You bring it to your living room, dining room. You discuss it with your parents. You discuss it with your elder members of the family. So see, most of the elders, their conversations today are not only formed by the TV or the radio or the press, but also the information not they have seen, but what their kids have seen on social media. So yes, social media is playing a bigger role now. And secondly, the entire new generation which is growing up with social media, who are the most important stakeholder of the development of the country. So I have to tell our stories to them in media where they live and the way they want to hear. The storytelling on social media is completely different to the storytelling ways of the traditional media. I'm sure you are part of changing that in Sri Lanka. So that storytelling is the most important aspect in today conversations, today dialogues and today communication. Yes, social media is going to be a massive part of our communication strategy, but yes, we have to keep exploring what are the best way to tell stories.
The Media Center for National Development is intends to develop a number of programs that fall under the vistas of prosperity and splendor. Can you tell me a number of these programs that you are going to be overlooking?
Yeah, I mean, I can take 30 minutes long program to read out all the development projects government is doing, details with the budget lines, who is responsible for that. But keeping that aside, I think what is most important is to create the culture of the development dialogue and the development communication, because we are so much used to entertainment, which is much needed, and looking at problems, but not discussing the solutions. You know, now most of the news we see today end up with the question. You know, but there are solutions. There are people who are looking for solutions. There are people who are working on solutions. They also need a space in the same article or in the same program. That culture we have to create. Now, let's say even UNHRC. I think that is a very essential development issue of the country. Why? Human rights is not an theoretical issue anymore. It's an instrument the most of the developed countries are using to control the economy of our countries. The sanctions, the geopolitical trade war, all that now are discussed at the Human Rights Council. You know, not using the same words you use in the trade negotiations, but this is a different negotiation using different words, but on the back, that is what actually happening. So all these are development discussions. If you really look at the discussions related to UNHRC at the moment in Sri Lanka, from both sides, people who are trying to put Sri Lanka in trouble, people who are trying to save Sri Lanka from that trouble, we all are still discussing only the human rights aspect of this. I think there are many other angles, including how this is going to affect the development progress of the country. Those things also needs to be discussed. So that's why I think it's not only about telling how many kilometers we are going to build, how many highways are going to come, how many ports are going to come. That's, I think, 50%. But rest of the 50% is developing this culture, especially after this collective depression of Corona, the possibilities, the possibilities to rebuild the countries, the possibilities for us as a younger generation, what we have in this country, what others have in this country. I think that culture needs to be created. I think I take that as a primary responsibility of our media center.
You have spent some time with Triad, and Triad is known to be the organization that keeps behind the campaigns of the president and the former president both. I think it's well acknowledged that Triad knows what it's doing and has done a good job. Do you think your experience with Triad is what helps you do or plan to do all of this?
See, I have been lucky in two ways. When especially it comes to communication, I think three ways. I studied communication and I teach communication at the Kelaniya University. That's a learning for me too, teaching part. But I have, if you ask what communication I like the most, definitely the political communication, which is very interesting and which is very challenging because you have to deliver a lot of outputs and outcomes. Why I'm lucky is that as creative communicator, I have represented Triad, probably the best local advertising agency in Sri Lanka. So I have been a creative thinker there, creative writer there, creative director there, innovator strategist there. So theoretically, I have learned a lot. I have worked. I have actually seen and worked on from getting the brief to developing the campaign to delivering it to seeing the election results. And same time, me being a politician, so I always have this dual role. In that case, while I am doing that professional role, I have worked as a politician on the ground. I have I have addressed hundreds of political rallies. That's a different communication. Then your posters, canvassing, that's completely different line of thoughts when it comes to political communication. I have done that too. So I have this both experience in same time. I don't know who else have that. Yeah. That's a wonderful experience which I had. I have seen above the line communication, below the line communication, that all I have been a part of, and also on the ground. So yes, I have that experience for last 5-6 years. That definitely has shaped me as a communicator, and that has affected my writing, my thinking, the way I look at communication problems, the way I find solution for communication problems. All that has changed with that learning.
You were talking about your politics. Like I mentioned earlier, you are a member of the Colombo Municipal Council, but you call yourself that boy from Veralla, a small town in Kurunegala. How did this small boy from Veralla end up in, the national stage or politics where you are right now?
Thanks to free education of this country. That's why I fight for the free education. I have my reservations about the free education. Whether it's 100% free or not, but the public education of this country has given tremendous opportunities for people. I would have never come to this stage if I didn't get the grade 5 scholarship, if I didn't get the university entrance to a government university, if I didn't get free hostels and food for a very cheap price and other facilities from this entire education system of this country, which is paid by the people of this country. I think that's 90% of the reason why we are here today. And the rest is, I have got other scholarships too to go to other countries and study. That's also thanks to someone else I have paid for that. But yes, that there are thousands of brilliant minds in this country. I think there are two challenges. One is language, that we all have agreed to that. Now we all know there are brilliant students coming out from local universities who can't face an interview properly because of their language issue. So they end up somewhere else. They don't even want to compete in some of the platforms because of the language issue. So that issue I think we have to solve immediately. I am a product of the decision we made in 1956. We ended up studying in Sinhala. Even after grade 12, studying English for 12 years, we couldn't speak English properly. That's how the system is working. So that challenge, if we are not to, so we have two options. Either we go on the path where Japan, Korea and China took. I think we are too late for that. So we have to mingle with the rest of the world and communicate in English. So that challenge I think we have to address immediately. The other challenge is the skills. I think even the technology, the computer literacy, all that came very late. Even to date, I think it is very late in the school curriculum. Most of those soft skills, the innovation, the critical thinking, none of these things are still in school education. That must come as soon as possible. If these two are settled, there will be 1,000 boys from Veralla who can easily come to Colombo and change what is happening in Colombo.
Let's talk about your own politics. I mean, I know we were speaking about how you got into politics, but you are also the co-founder of this platform called Next Gen Sri Lanka, which is a cross-party youth political platform. what compelled you all to come up with this platform? And I know some of your campaigns are against campaign financing law, about training young politicians and political activists in digital skills. Why did this conversation come about?
Well, I think the need of Next Gen SL was not a need of mine or Rasika or Eranga from JVP. It was a very social need at that time. There was a much needed political discourse where everyone can come together and discuss. You know, not simply because a TV channel facilitate a political debate, but there was a genuine need where especially young politicians wanted to come together and debate on two things. Number one, debate on what you don't agree. There are a lot of things I don't agree with my co-convener Rasika and Eranga from JVP or the representatives from TNO Muslim Congress. There are a lot of things. Most of the things we don't agree. But there should be a platform for us to debate so others can watch it and they can make an informed decision to join one of our political ideologies or a political party. Then there is a much needed space for us to debate on what we agree. There are a lot of things we agree, like what you just mentioned, the campaign financing. So there are two major issues in the political arena at the moment: campaign financing and the electoral system at the moment. It's very difficult for a educated young person or a professional to come to this political system, contest, spend all you have, or then rob for next 4 or 5 years to collect what you already spent for your election. So this needs to be changed, and fortunately young people represent all the political parties agreed on that. Not only that, if you ask from SLPP, my political party, my political leaders agree on that. I'm sure now SJB agrees on that. I'm sure JVP agrees on that. So, but I think we have a bigger responsibility being young politicians to push this agenda, to push our boundaries. So Next Gen SL is a very loose cross-party collective. At the moment, Rasika and myself co-chair it, representing SJB and SLPP. The beauty of Next Gen SL is it's not an ad hoc collective, it is a collective which has blessing from the political leadership. So whatever we do, we communicate back to our political leadership. So there is a possibility for us to change what the leadership or the bigger party is thinking. I think that is the most important part. We can change, but the changing the party leadership, the ideology of the party is the most important part. That is what we are doing at the moment.
Sort of a lobbying within the party.
Within the party.
Right. Let's talk about your affiliations with the SLPP. The SLPP is a relatively new party. Who were your political affiliations with at the start?
If you ask to name like 2-3 best things I have produced other than my 2 kids, one would be the affiliation to the party, how we built this party. Even my political journey starts with the SLFP, coming from where, as you mentioned. Then in the university, very leftist thinking. I was a part of the student union for all 4 years.
Which university?
Waimba University. So very leftist thinking. I have been a very active student leader. So SLFP has formed our political thinking, to be very honest, but our reading is very leftist. So if you grow up as a Sinhala reader, so most of our books are translated from Russia, so it's very leftist thinking. But my world opened when I started working for UN, other international organizations. I understood how the market and politics is interrelated, which are very important, two different aspects, but work together always. But then we faced this situation in 2015 and we were compelled to come up with a new political party. But that political party, SLPP, was created with a purpose. It is not like any of those big parties where you go and join. SLPP was carefully crafted, carefully formed, carefully built party every single aspect of the party was very well thought. There is a very strong ideology behind the party. There is a very strong philosophy where we all stand by. That is why this party could win massive, this party could score massive 3 victories within a small period of time across presidential, general and local government election. And I was one of those guinea pigs who went to the local government election from the SLPP. That was our first election as a political party, and we won the election. That's how I went to Colombo Municipal Council, and I was one of the first teams of SLPP to represent SLPP to another country. We went to Russia, our young political team. So we have been an integrated part of this political party, SLPP, and the ideology. That is the most important thing, the ideology. If you ask me why I like SLPP, not because it has the power now, not because we were part of forming it. Most importantly, it has a very distinctive ideology which we were part of forming it. Yes, but if you ask very specific question where my affiliation is, actually Namal Rajapaksha is the friend. I would say Namal had this very big vision of collecting, bringing a lot of young boys and girls into the party. Not only the party, that's why I like about him, not only as members but as elected members of the party. That's where the power is. So that's how most of us got into the election, because of his advocacy within the party. He advocated his family and the party to get a lot of young people into the system. Even if you look at the general election this time, so many young people contested from our party and won. So many new professionals contested and won. Around 60 new members came to the parliament because of our party. So that's the beauty. Yes, if you ask my affiliation, even then and now, it's more towards Namal Rajapaksha, who is actually the new face of the politics of this country.
What about the provincial council elections? Will you be contesting?
If we are to have the provincial council election. But if you ask the SLPP stand, yes, we want to have the provincial council election. That is a promise we gave to people. No, we are not here to postpone or cancel an election. Having the election is a promise we gave to people. So whether it is provincial or whatever, we have to have the election. If we are to cancel the provincial council election, I would say that is even after holding the election, we should work towards demolishing the provincial council election.
So you were formally, this is pre-presidential election, the spokesperson for now President Gotabaya Rajapaksa. How did that happen? Was it through Namal or how?
No, that is actually a result of Viyatmaga. We were founding members of Viyatmaga, and then we worked in that 5 years. I did 2 things actually. One is with the party, another one is with Viyatmaga. I think one thing Mr. Gotabaya Rajapaksha wanted at that time was having new young face to do most of his different works. Even to date, he has a good young team working with him in different aspects. So I was given the opportunity of a spokesperson before the election. If I take that 1 year, that I have learned, 10 years worth things from him, mostly. The discipline, reading, intellectuality, the way you take questions and analyze it, and the impartial way of looking at problems and the answers. And he is very solution driven. No point telling him only questions. He is very solution driven person. All that learning for that 1 year. And then I learned a lot about media that year, because the one major crisis happened during that period was the East attack. So he was at the forefront of speaking to all the international media. I still remember one day he spoke to 18 international media. We started at 6:30 in the morning. Even at 11 o'clock he was giving interviews from BBC to everyone. He took all the questions and answers, and I have sat with him through lengthy interviews from New York Times to Indian Express, So I learned a lot about, not only about managing media, but also about how media look at different things. I think that's a good learning for me to work here today. Yeah, that's a pretty good training, pretty good work experience, and knowing him for that 1 year, I can understand how desperate or stressed he must be when things don't move in the country. I can understand when he go from village to village, when officials don't respond, when people don't work properly, the people who should be working, how difficult it must be for him to keep the momentum.
Right. I also want to talk about, this is a bit of a sticky topic, but let's move to the UNHRC sessions in Geneva. As you know, the Human Rights Commission has leveled a number of specific charges against Sri Lanka, and this includes militarization of civilian government functions, surveillance and harassment of journalists, lawyers, civil society activists and the like, and a number of allegations like that which you may have already seen. I know what the government's official stance is because right now they're addressing that, but do you share that same stance? Do you think that these things exist in Sri Lanka?
I stand by government stance simply because even after 10 years of the war, even after doing everything possible as a small nation, even after going through so many harassment and being very responsible and answerable to all these international bodies, if still UNHRC is behaving like this, when I say behaving like this, still picking us, this small nation, and attacking us and harassing us and using us for other geopolitical reasons, that's a very bad precedent for the entire world. This could happen to any nation who wants to come out from bad memories, who wants to come out from whatever the economical situation they are in. The entire generation of that country who wants to come out and face the new opportunities, including you and me, this is a real harassment. And all these big boys, I don't think we can teach them a lesson to all these big boys at the UNHRC, but we should work with all the other countries in the world who are willing to support us and who empathize with us to battle this international harassment. And also, we should never ever, this is a country with more than 2,500 years long history. We have a good civilization. We have a beautiful language. We have hosted so many languages and religions. This is a beautiful place with a dignity and a sovereignty. We should not ever allow that sovereignty to go away because of what international powerful big boys say.
Right. Okay, thank you very much for speaking to us, and I wish you all the best, not just in your political career, but also with this new Media Center for National Development and everything else that you engage with. It's, as always, a pleasure to know, like you said, a small boy from Varela can actually climb up to this position and do as well as you're doing. So I wish you all the success.
Thank you very much. Entire Varela will be happy about the way you pronounce Varela.
Thank you very much.